Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like the video and tell us in the comments where you're watching from.
The night over Dry Creek Ridge settled in without color, the kind of cold darkness that quieted even the usual sounds of the plains. Cole Merrick stepped out onto his porch with a lantern hanging from two fingers, letting its dim light fall across the yard. He scanned the shadows with a practiced calm, though tension sat in the back of his neck. Bishop should have been here. The dog never wandered far, not without reason, and this made the third night Cole had stepped outside to an empty yard. He stayed still for a long moment, not calling the dog's name, just listening. The silence felt wrong. Even the wind moved lightly, barely touching the grass. Cole lowered the lantern, jaw tightening. He didn't like not understanding what was happening. It put him on edge, the same edge he worked hard to keep buried since the day he lost his brother. He set the lantern down on the porch rail, adjusted his coat, and stepped off the porch. He checked the dirt for prints the way a man checks for snakes without thinking. Careful, steady movements, eyes sharp. Bishop's tracks were faint in the hardened ground, but clear enough to follow. They angled toward the eastern field, straight toward the old graveyard that nobody spoke about unless forced. Cole closed the cabin door quietly and started walking. The lantern swung with his steps, lighting only a narrow slice of the dark. His breath came in thin clouds. His thoughts stayed tight. If the dog found something dangerous, I should have gone sooner. He pushed the idea away, keeping his pace even. The path toward the graveyard stretched wide and empty. His boots pressed into loose dirt, leaving solid prints behind him. The fence posts that lined the edge of the old burial ground leaned under years of neglect. Cole paused at the entrance, tightening his grip on the lantern. He scanned the rows of tilted headstones. Nothing moved. "Bishop," he called softly. No answer, just a faint shift of grass. He stepped forward, heartbeat steady but heavier than usual. Something in his gut warned him this wasn't a simple case of a curious dog. The closer he got, the colder the air felt. His boots crunched lightly over brittle grass. His eyes adjusted, picking up the shapes between gravestones. Then he saw Bishop standing stiff near the back row, tail low, head lowered toward something on the ground. Cole's pace changed, slower but direct. Bishop didn't turn or bark. He just stood there, tense and alert, as if guarding whatever he had found. Cole lifted the lantern higher, letting light spill across the nearest stones. The glow caught metal first, thin iron chains stretching between two cracked headstones. Then he saw a pair of slender wrists bound by the cuffs, the skin rubbed raw and swollen. His breath stuck for a second. A young Apache woman sat slumped between the stones, her knees drawn in, her head bowed, so low her hair nearly hid her face. Her dress was torn at the shoulder and chest, exposing bruises made by hands that didn't care about the damage. Dirt clung to her legs. She wasn't moving much. Her breathing came shallow through parted lips. Cole took a step closer, then forced himself to stop. He didn't want to startle her. She looked too close to breaking. His mind ran through possibilities fast. Who did this? How long has she been here? Why did everyone believe she died if she was left like this? None of it made sense, and the more he looked at her, the more anger pressed at the back of his ribs. It wasn't loud anger. It was the quiet kind he had carried for years, the kind that didn't let go once it settled. The woman didn't react to his footsteps. She seemed past the point of reacting. Cole lowered himself to one knee, moving slow. The cold from the ground pushed through his trousers, but he ignored it. "It's all right," he said, voice low and steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her shoulders flinched, so slightly he might have missed it if he hadn't been watching her so closely. She didn't lift her head. She didn't try to pull away from the chains. It was the reaction of someone who'd learned that resistance only brought worse pain. Cole swallowed hard. He angled the lantern so she wouldn't have to stare into the glare if she looked up. His hands hovered near the chains, careful and visible. "I'm going to check these," he murmured. She didn't speak, but she turned her head a fraction, just enough to show she had heard him. Her eyes finally lifted. They were dark and exhausted, but sharp underneath the weariness. Fear sat deep inside them, and something like expectation, like she already knew men came here only to confirm she was still alive or nearly gone. Cole held her gaze without pushing anything into it. No pity, no force, just a quiet acknowledgement of what she had survived. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small metal tool. She tensed again, breath catching. He paused, only to open the cuffs, he said gently. After a moment, she gave the smallest nod. It wasn't confidence. It was resignation mixed with a thread of hope. Cole worked the first lock slowly, aware of how her breathing changed each time the metal clicked. His hands were steady, movements practiced. When the cuff released, her wrist dropped weakly, and she exhaled in a shaky, painful breath that sounded like her first real breath in days. He opened the second cuff and eased her hand free. Her skin was cold, roughened from iron and weather. He slipped his coat off and placed it around her shoulders. She tried to adjust the heavy fabric, but winced at the movement. "We're going," he said softly. "You're not staying here another hour." He slid an arm around her back, lifting her carefully. She was lighter than he expected. Too light. Bishop walked beside them, keeping close enough that his warm body brushed her leg now and then. She didn't resist the help. She didn't cling either. She simply leaned toward Cole, just enough to stay upright. Every few steps, she shivered. Every few steps, Cole felt a spike of anger at whoever had done this. But he kept his breathing even. She didn't need his anger right now. She needed steadiness. When they reached the cabin door, Cole looked down at her. Her eyes had dimmed again, but she stayed conscious, watching him with a kind of exhausted trust that made him feel the weight of what he was doing. Inside, he lowered her near the stove and added wood until flames rose bright and warm. She watched him with a tight, uncertain expression, waiting to see if this kindness had a